Hi there, warm welcome. You're watching Decoding Now and I'm Meghna Deka. Well, for years the IPL has been synonymous with glamour, power, high-stakes cricket. But where there is fame, money and access, there are vulnerabilities as well. Now, in one of its strongest cautionary advisories, the BCCI has effectively drawn a Lakshman Rekha for all the cricketers and their owners, the franchisee owners alike. Warning against honey traps, targeted compromises, situations that could lead to blackmail or damaging legal trouble. Surprise checks, strict guest protocols and tighter monitoring rules are going to be all part of a new precautionary playbook that Times Now has managed to access for you. Well, the question is, what changed and what exactly is the board trying to prevent? What's this honey trap red flag is the question. In fact, let's take you through the BCCI's advisory and the specific warnings which have been issued to all the franchisees as well as cricketers over honey trap risks, blackmail concerns and player conduct. Let's take you through what exactly is the warning. The first warning is the risk of targeted compromise and honey trapping. Second warning is the possibility of incidents which are giving rise to legal allegations. What is it? This includes those under laws of sexual misconduct. You can't discount, BCCI says, charges of sexual misconduct either. Fifth warning is that franchisees must be vigilant and must ensure every step is taken to mitigate such risks to players and the reputation of the IPL itself. Well, we've also exclusively accessed the BCCI's guidelines, which have been aimed at keeping players and team staff safe from potential risks. For example, let's take you through what the BCCI advisory says players must do to try and avoid honey trap situations and compromising on-field risks. Let's start with this. The first, this is about how there should be no unauthorized entry into players' rooms. If you want to stay safe from honey traps, ensure that there is no entry into the support staff accommodation either. It goes on to say managers' explicit written approval is required if any cricketer wants to have a guest in their room. The guest must be received only in the hotel lobby, not in the players' rooms, but all the guests should be met only in hotel lobbies, essentially in public areas. BCCI has also suggested that there should be no guests permitted inside private hotel rooms, especially of the cricketers. BCCI says that the team manager's prior approval is absolutely compulsory. Now, Times Now has managed to access this entire advisory for you. In fact, it's not just about the honey traps. The BCCI has also rolled out a wider set of stricter guidelines which are aimed at mitigating risks to the players as well as the team staff. Let's tell you what exactly it is that they've said. All the midnight moves have been blocked. They say there should be no exit without any kind of clearance. They've also gone on to say that you must log all the hotel exits and returns. What time the cricketers exiting, what time the cricketers are returning, all of that must be logged properly and may conduct periodic checks. The BCCI is likely to check in anytime that they want. Also, it talks about no owner access to the dugout areas. This is an important one. Also saying there should be no mid-match contact with the players. There shouldn't even be these hugs in the middle of a match. And of course, after that entire controversy, it says that vapes are out of the IPL. No vaping in the IPL venues and even in the hotels. And when it comes to vaping, there's going to be a zero tolerance policy which is going to be enforced. So just to show you how seriously the BCCI is taking all of this, honey trap warning, remember, comes in at a time when there is a controversy which has never been really something we've seen in the IPL, too far from the IPL. First, there were the visuals coming in of Riyan Parag. You can see the visuals there on your screens. He was caught on camera vaping inside the locker room. Now, this has sparked off a massive debate. Then came questions after Rajasthan Royals team manager Romit Bhinder. He was seen using a phone in the dugout. An area, remember, which is governed by strict protocols of the IPL. And now the BCCI's wider crackdown is in what some are calling the IPL's girlfriend culture, with tighter restrictions on players' access and also the off-field conduct that we have seen of these players. So let me go across to Karishma Singh, who's joining us live. Karishma, you're the one who've managed to access this BCCI's rule book of do's and don'ts this IPL season. What is startling is that this advisory, Karishma, surprisingly comes bang in the middle of a season. After several controversies, we've already seen this IPL season being mired in, and this big red flag of honey trap which has been raised. What are the reasons for it?
Well, yes, absolutely, Meghna. This is very, very important because never in the last 18 seasons of IPL has this happened that advisory would be issued mid-tournament. In fact, we spoke to my sources as well, and I was categorically told that this is probably one of the most indisciplined seasons of IPL that the BCCI has also seen. And let's talk about the girlfriend culture that you just mentioned. The BCCI is very, very worried about this girlfriend culture that has come into the IPL, because what my sources tell me is that while there is accountability, legal responsibility for wives and even fiancés, there is no responsibility, accountability or transparency when it comes to girlfriends. In fact, sources said that words like announced girlfriends were being used by players this time around in the Indian Premier League to say that this is my girlfriend and she's going to be with me for the duration of the IPL. But the question that was asked was that what happens after the IPL? How are we going to be sure what is being shared with this girlfriend or not being shared with this girlfriend? And that is why some of the franchisees have now told their players that they will have to give it in writing at least 4 to 5 days before as to who is coming to meet them, for how much time, and why are they coming to meet them. So all of this now will have to be implemented by the franchisees, and the players will have to follow it.
The players have been told if you don't follow it, there may be financial repercussions, fines, suspensions, even expulsions from the IPL. So hope they're listening. Thank you so much, Karishma, for getting us that Mega Times Now exclusive. But remember, this crackdown isn't just limited to the IPL. In fact, the BCCI has already begun enforcing stricter rules when it comes to the Indian cricket team as well. Measures which have been introduced last year as well as part of a wider effort to tighten discipline and minimize the off-field problems and risks as well. For example, the BCCI has always said that on-field discipline includes players cannot travel separately. It has also insisted that the players cannot leave practice in the middle of a session. They can't leave it early either. Off-field restrictions include limitations on the number of personal staff like stylists and all that the players at times have been carrying along with them. Also, BCCI says there cannot be any personal shoots, photo shoots, which can be held during any tour. Also, strict family travel policy have been enforced as well. There's a time limit which has been put in for wags, wives and girlfriends. For all the cricketers as well, the family has been permitted one visit per tour. They can stay for a maximum of 2 weeks. Now, this is BCCI's advisory from January last year. Now, this warning from the BCCI, remember, does not emerge in a vacuum. Cricket has over the years repeatedly seen investigations where players and officials were warned about the methods allegedly used by the bookies to target cricketers. For example, take the 2013 IPL spot fixing scandal, perhaps the most high-profile controversy where honey trap allegations entered the cricketing conversation. Rajasthan Royals players S. Srishant and Ajit Chandila as well as Ankit Chavan were accused as being part of the investigations, and there were claims which were made at the time that bookies had used women to snare and entrap them. Social access was part of their approach. While the allegations generated enormous headlines, all the 3 players eventually were acquitted due to lack of evidence. Then came the 2012 ICC-linked probe following a British newspaper sting operation, where claims surfaced that Bollywood actresses had allegedly been used to compromise the players. Actress Nupur Mehta's name had surfaced at the time because of an alleged link to Tilakaratne Dilshan during the 2009 World Cup period. But the ICC later said that there was no evidence which was found and there was no action which actually followed this. The issue resurfaced in the Karnataka Premier League fixing probe in 2019, where investigators claim that some of the players may have been exposed to honey trap tactics overseas. The fallout was significant enough to cast a shadow over the entire league itself, and the league was cancelled in 2020. Then in a separate blackmail case during the 2022 Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy, a Delhi cricketer was allegedly targeted after meeting a woman through a dating app, filmed in a compromising situation, and then they tried to extort 60,000 rupees and an iPhone from him. The police later made arrests in that case and arrested the blackmailers. So is it any surprise now that the BCCI has drawn the Lakshman Rekha this IPL season? Let me go across to our panelists. We are joined by Nikhil Sharma, sports commentator and author. Vedam Jaishankar also joins us, another sports journalist. Vedam, I'm going to start with you. This kind of do's and don'ts, how not to get honey trapped in the gentleman's game, continue to be a gentleman essentially, reminders are important, isn't it?
Yeah, good evening. See, the thing is, the IPL is a billion-dollar industry. You have to protect it, ring fence it. And to do that, the BCCI has to do everything in its power to ensure that it stays as a premium event. Now, there is no smoke without fire. So obviously something very serious and drastic has happened. But it is that it started today. It must have happened for years together. There are issues, a lot of issues. The BCCI so far is only threatening players. It's not just threatening. You need to do a lot of mentorship also. You know, earlier we saw with the Australian rules football, this is a few years ago, they had the same issue. They had guys with semi-education, with a lot of money, they were millionaires, and raging hormones. And it led to a lot of things like gang rape and other issues. The entire sport was going to come tumbling down before Australian rules football stepped in and started a mentorship program. Now, BCCI doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. It just has to go through the whole thing again. Now, the problem again with the Indian players is, I'm not saying it's a problem, it's how the system runs. During the teen years, when people are dating and, having fun, they're actually playing serious cricket. They're building their skills. They're going to the gym, building their body, building skills. And they don't have time to interact. Suddenly, when they hit the big time, and women throw themselves at them. And it's all sorts of women, married women, older women, younger women, glamorous women. They just don't know how to handle it. And like you correctly said, there are a lot of cases where they are honey trapped. The women are not behind them just for that. And let's not, beyond the film stars, the cricketers are the most glamorous people.
Absolutely.
So whether it's a model who's been built up or a film star who's been built up or somebody else, these guys are fair game. They are fair game because their exposure levels are limited. So threatening them is one thing. Threatening them with ban, etc., is one thing. But you also need to step up your game. The board needs to, mentor them, train them, tutor them. And this can start at the NCA, where a lot of skills are taught.
You're absolutely right. Mental strength is also one of the skills that needs to be put forth. They need to know how to behave, how to keep the respect within the game alive as well. It is, after all, called the gentleman's game. Nikhil Sharma, and this is something that Vedam has talked about, and all of us are aware of the multiple controversies. Yes, it comes with the fame, fortune. In a country where cricket is like a religion, you can expect these kind of controversies to follow suit. But as Vedam says, this is not the first time. There is no smoke without fire, even if it is a vape. The point is that all of this has been happening. Why now is the question. Has this been one of the most controversial periods that we've seen of indiscipline within the teams at the IPL?
Well, Meghna, I think, if there's any problem that Indian cricket's really faced is of administration and governance, specifically centered around integrity. Otherwise, if you look at cricket in India, it's by far the biggest business of sport today. Just the money that's involved, the quantity, the quantum of money that's involved can corrupt a lot of people. And, I really like what Vedam said. A lot of these young boys, essentially all they've done all their life is play sport. Most of them are not highly educated because they've given up on their education fairly early. They're mostly nice boys, they've come through the ranks. They've faced a lot of problem to be here, right? The kind of obstacles that you face to be a professional footballer, a cricketer, I don't think anybody can imagine just the problems that they've faced. Now that they're here, they're dealing with more pressure, more stress, more eyeballs. And not everybody has that gumption, that awareness, that exposure to understand what is to be done with all of this exposure and glamour, as Vedam said. In that case, it's very important for the BCCI, for the people who are hosting the tournament, to put together guidelines. Now, what has happened also is that because it's become like, we've spoken about it, it's become like cricket plus entertainment. It's not necessarily a pure play sport event any longer because of the money that's involved. Things do tend to get out of hand. Some things like, for example, Romy Bhindar, I've known him for a long time, such a pure cricket guy,
right.
10 years before the IPL started, he was in the ICU, right? And I'm just surprised that he still continues to work, dedicate himself to the sport. So yet, he's been seen on live television with something that you should not be doing. So, it casts you into a space that you necessarily didn't want to be. How do you come out of it is basically administration, good, clean rules. And as Vedam said, it's the most important thing, somebody to keep mentoring these young boys, Meghna.
So a mentorship program is definitely required, not just the do's and don'ts, because at the end of it, it's not just the on-field discipline, which clearly they've earned over the years, over the decades, but also off-screen and off the field, what exactly it is that you have done. Because after all, this is the gentleman's game. Let's keep it that way, isn't it? Thank you so much, Nikhil Sharma, as well as Vedam Jaishankar, for joining us.